Hello, this video is to explain some of the information on the info page of PBS, specifically the bidders data grid. So on the info page, you'll see this bidders grid. It shows by base the number of eligible bidders, projected line holders, etc., etc. Let's talk about eligible bidders real quick. This is the total number of pilots that are going to receive an award in PBS. So, for example, here we're looking at Airbus A320 captains. The JFK base has 492 eligible bidders. So the remainder of the pilots that you'll see in an award either have VIL lines or COLAs or some other kind of full month leave that excludes them from the bidding process. The next column is projected line holders. This is an estimate based on the total amount of credit to bid on plus pre-credits such as vacation or training. This is only an estimate. Keep in mind bidder behavior drives a lot of this, so the trip pool and mix combined with bidder behavior can drive huge variations in this. We don't know where and how the pre-credit will affect junior line holders or junior bidders. So it's possible this number could be 10, 15, 20% off. In the past, this was more accurate because there were fewer reserve pilots and the pre-credit from vacations could more reliably be assumed to go on the line holders. However, with such a high number of reserve pilots, and we'll get to that in a little bit, this is a less accurate estimate. I would say if you're anywhere near this number of 261 in terms of bidder seniority, I would recommend putting in a backup reserve bid. The next column is planned reserve pilots. This is a number derived by crew planning in accordance with the 25Q of the CBA. This is the number of pilots the company needs on reserve to maintain the operation. Basically, they take a number, they set their reserve minimums. These are the minimums you would see on the reserve grid in FLICA, and they add a percentage to that number to get the planned reserve pilots. So for the short call number, it's always 5% because that's a contractual requirement. For long call, they try to get 4% addition. We'll talk about excess reserve pilots in just a moment. The next two columns are estimated minimum long call and short call. This is based on the contractual minimum percentages from 25R1B. So the company requires 89 pilots per their plan. So with a plan of 89 pilots, the 25% minimum for long call is 23, and the 30% minimum for short call ends up being 27. The min is a guarantee only. In other words, we can guarantee there will be at least 23 long call pilots, and we can guarantee there will be at least 27 short call pilots because it's required by the CBA. But the numbers will likely be much larger than that on both sides. So you'll notice the totals don't add up. For example, projected line holders plus planned reserve pilots definitely does not add up to the total number of eligible bidders. This is because we're doing reduced flying, and the excess number of pilots will be put into reserve. Similarly, the minimum numbers of long call and short call don't add up to the planned reserve pilots. Again, these are minimums only, not what the total numbers of reserves will be. So let's look at an example of how this might work in an operational month. So looking at the JFK numbers here, let's say the company says we need a minimum of 89 reserve pilots. And based on our estimates and operational need, we want to have about 50% of those to be short call and 50% to be long call. So in this case, we would estimate that there would be about 45 short call, and per the plan, the remaining would be 44 long call. And if we were not operating in a reduced schedule like we are now, the remaining pilots would be line holders likely, and these numbers would add up. But again, because of the reduced schedule, we have an excess of reserve pilots. So looking down, assuming the projected line holders is correct, and it probably will not be, but let's go with those numbers now. You have 492 bidders. You take away 261 lines, that gives you 231 total reserve pilots. Now, the company is only planning and only requiring to have 89 reserve pilots, so the remainder are excess. Per the contract, all excess reserves are long call. So with a minimum of 45 short call pilots required, the remaining 186 pilots would be long call. There's really no way to know what the number of short call or long call pilot requirements are going to be in advance. These numbers change during the bidding process a little bit here and there, and the company is not required to publish these per the CBA. They are, however, required to maintain the minimums, which is why we have those published on the bidding tab. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Go ahead and send us a PDR. Bidding questions, any kind of question at all, we prefer contact via PDR only. That gets to all our committee members, and you can do that through b6alpa.org and locate the PDR tab right on the front page.